Namaste, I'm Khushbu Oli, Central Committee Member, Rashtriya Prajatantra Party. I strongly condemn the government-backed brutal repression of the peaceful Mahavyan protest in Kathmandu. This movement, representing the true sentiment of nationalist Nepalis, was independently organized by collective nationalist forces, which had moral support from the Rashtriya Prajatantra Party. The protest began as a peaceful Amsava, where nationalist leaders were preparing to speak. However, in an outrageous and shameful act, the government forces threw tear gas directly onto the stage, disrupting the program before it even began. This unprovoked attack triggered chaos and set off the chain of events that followed. Shortly after, non-uniformed security personnel stationed on rooftops began firing tear gas onto peaceful demonstrators on the streets, further escalating the situation. These two deliberate acts of state violence provoked unrest. The responsibility lies squarely within the government. Despite the protest being peaceful, the government unleashed excessive violence using rubber bullets, tear gas, and direct police brutality to silence the people. This is a blatant violation of democracy and fundamental human rights. The government falsely claimed that only 3,000 to 4,000 people participated, but the reality is it had over thousands of Nepali who took to the streets, demonstrating their frustration against the failing system. If the protest was truly insignificant, why did the government deploy thousands of security personnel and resort to extreme violence? This contradiction exposes their fear and insecurity. Additionally, the government not only used police forces but also deployed non-uniformed operatives and vigilantes which occupied private homes, firing tear gas and rubber bullets from rooftops. I personally witnessed this brutality, and some of our cadres were trapped inside a building due to this unlawful operation, requiring immense effort to rescue them. This was not just a crackdown, it was a state-sponsored terror campaign against its own citizens. Even more disturbingly, government-backed vigilantes disguised as nationalists deliberately incited chaos by burning buildings and causing destruction to falsely blame the protesters. This was a calculated strategy to delegitimize the nationalist movement and justify the brutal suppression. We have always advocated for peaceful protest, and we strongly reject these baseless allegations. We want to make it absolutely clear. This protest was the voice of the people, not an direction by the king or the monarch. The king and RPP have never supported, encouraged or called for violence in any form. Attempts to drag the king's name into this incident are politically motivated and an effort to mislead the public. The people of Nepal demand the return of the monarchy out of their own free will, not because of any call from the royal family. The king has never sought political involvement in such protests, nor has encouraged any violent actions. The government and certain vested interests must stop falsely implicating the king and the royal family in order to divert the attention from their own failures and brutal actions. Furthermore, the arrest of our senior nationalist leaders and members of nationalist forces is highly condemnable. These leaders, who have dedicated themselves to the peaceful movement for Nepal's sovereignty and identity, are now being treated as criminals simply for voicing the people's demands. We demand their immediate and unconditional release. Silencing opposition through arbitrary arrest is a sign of authoritarianism and weakness, and the people of Nepal will not tolerate such oppression. We demand a full investigation into the brutal crackdown, official recognition of the two martyrs, immediate release of arrested nationalist leaders, restoration of Nepal as a Hindu state, a ceremonial monarchy, a directly elected prime minister, good governance, and the abolition of the federal government. Furthermore, we call for a new political agreement that includes space for all stakeholders, including the king. In 2006, the Maoists were integrated into the political mainstream without elections, proving that not all political issues must be settled through voting alone. Today, political parties speak of the people's mandate, yet history shows how such mandates have been ignored when convenient. For instance, during the drafting of the 2015 constitution, over 80% of the respondents supported a Hindu state, but their voices were disregarded. This was not a democracy, it was a betrayal of the people's will. Therefore, we demand that mainstream political parties engage in a fresh agreement to address key national issues while ensuring democracy and inclusivity. The government's violent crackdown has only exposed its desperation to silence the people's movement. We demand an independent investigation to uncover the truth behind this brutality and hold those responsible fully accountable. The people of Nepal will not be intimidated or silenced. This is a fight for justice, democracy, and national identity. The voice of the people will prevail. Jai Rashtravad.